Hi, this is Peter Russell of University of Story. I also teach at UCLA and Pepperdine, but my main job is being a story doctor in Hollywood. And over the last 5 years, most of my work has gone from working on movies to working on television. Now, when I began to work on television 5 years ago, more than movies, I kind of panicked because I'd been working on films for 10 years and I had developed a whole set of tools for movies, and I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to help television creators. But the good news was everything I'd learned about movies worked in television. Everything. Television, of course, is different. In television, the characters don't change. Everything but the characters change. And the other thing is you can tell a lot more than you show. But all the patterns I discovered that worked in the genres in movies also work in the genres of television. So what I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about is how to take a classic movie and to analyze it and to break it down. And we're going to use The Dark Knight to do so, because all these patterns are going to work in your television show too. The thriller patterns and the action patterns I'm going to talk about today work in television as well. And because television is so full of dark heroes now, and even anti-heroes, dark heroes like Mr. Robot, anti-heroes like Breaking Bad, and there's more coming, by the way, many more anti-heroes coming. I want to talk to you about how Chris Nolan, who is a genius of a movie maker, has made an anti-hero in the show Dark Knight, in the movie Dark Knight, that is so brilliant that it shows you how you can create an anti-hero, not just in movies if you want to make movies, but also in television. I'm also going to be lecturing in a few weeks on how to turn a great film into a television show using Fargo as an example. But I want to use Dark Knight tonight because Chris Nolan is brilliant. He's a genius. And nobody does the anti-hero story as well as him. Now, in action, you want to understand a couple of things. In an action movie, the villain's obvious. You see it from the very beginning. And so there's three kinds of action heroes. There is the rites of passage hero who heals his wound through the course of the movie. This is Iron Man. There is the superhero. This is Leonidas in 300. He never really has an emotional change. By the way, that can also be a villain superhero like Jake Johansson not Jake Johansson, he's a comic. Or it can be the kind of villain that you have with Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. He never really changes. He just gets stronger and stronger as a villain. You also have a third kind of action hero, and that is the hero we're going to talk about today, the anti-hero. Now, he's the guy who starts out good, but becomes evil for sympathetic reasons. This, by the way, is Walter White in Breaking Bad. And this, by the way, is Harvey Dent in Dark Knight. The Dark Knight I'm using because Nolan is so brilliant. An anti-hero is simply a hero who turns into a villain. That's it. You want to use this kind of action hero if you're writing a hip, dark story with a disturbing or provocative theme to appeal to the hipster intellectual crowd as well as the traditional action audience. So you get a mix. It's brilliant to do that. We're going to show you this hero in a movie. I'm going to logline the movie for you right now. Now, a movie logline is about a hero who changes. It's the entire story of the movie from the perspective of the hero. But that's exactly what you get here. Let me read you the logline for Dark Knight. When a brave but self-righteous and wrathful district attorney is tapped by a superhero to save a city from corruption and a supervillain, he becomes so angry at the supervillain's hideous crimes that he becomes evil himself and starts murdering innocent people until the superhero must step in, kill him, and take the blame for his crimes. Now, who is the hero in The Dark Knight? It's not Batman. It's Harvey Dent, the DA. But remember, in action, the villain is insanely powerful. I just did a consult with a really brilliant guy, new writer, very, very big actor who wants to write. And he wrote a brilliant story, but he left out his villain. In a lot of genres, guys, you want to have the villain as the thing that drives all your action, even if you don't see it at first. And The Dark Knight has an insanely powerful villain in the Joker. The hero is an anti-hero. It's Harvey Dent, Two-Face. Harvey Dent is a guy who starts out good and he becomes evil. And he does so for reasons that we're going to talk about are the same reasons we voted President Obama into office. This is about how the world works. Anti-heroes begin to make the wrong decisions for the right reasons because their core wound gets activated by the villain. He changes to dark from light for sympathetic reasons. Now, Michael Corleone in The Godfather is an anti-hero. Why? How does Michael Corleone start out in the movie? He's a war hero. And when he goes to his father's house, he tells his fiancée, I'm not like them, Kay. I'm different. Why does Michael Corleone become dark? For sympathetic reasons. Remember what they are? Why? Because his father gets shot. And Michael wants to save his family. This is the key secret to creating a great anti-hero, guys. Make him a guy we can care about. If you don't, you end up with a really bad anti-hero nobody cares about. So, what do we do this here? That's Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. Okay, great anti-heroes. Now, when you have an action hero, you want to give them traits. What are Harvey Dent's traits in this movie? He's brave as hell. He's a risk taker, he's self-righteous, and he's willing to cut corners. Now, where do we first see him? We see him in a courtroom fighting against the corruption in Gotham City with his fiancée at his side. And when the guy on the stand pulls a gun on him, Harvey Dent just grabs the gun, pulls it out of his hand, and tells the judge, I don't even want to take a break. I got to prosecute this guy, and then I'm going to play golf this afternoon. And the whole courtroom applauds. Why? What is the power of the Dark Knight? Because it's us. You know that Los Angeles is a corrupt city, don't you? You know that our country has a lot of corruption in it, don't you? Who's fighting it? Who's fighting it? Nobody. Well, this story has a vigilante fighting it. Why is Batman important in this story? Because Batman is a vigilante fighting the corrupt forces of Los Angeles, fighting the corrupt forces that give you a parking ticket for $900, that get you into court and out for $4,000 when you know you did nothing wrong. Bribery on every level. How do we solve it? Harvey Dent will solve it. He's courageous, righteous, and good. That's how an anti-hero starts out. He's using his bravery for light. But remember, he's got a core wound. All great heroes do. Harvey Dent's core wound is that the people he loved die. He can never love. Now remember, in this corrupt city, Batman is a vigilante. And we see that in the Batman television shows too. When your world is corrupt, and every official you meet is corrupt, just like every cop you're going to meet in Los Angeles, you're probably going to have a bad experience with. Who do you turn to for salvation? You can't turn to a cop. Who do you turn to? Maybe you turn to somebody you hire who's a vigilante, who's outside the corrupt system. Well, that's Batman. So in Dark Knight, Batman decides to run Harvey Dent for office. He wants Harvey Dent to come in and clean up Gotham City because Batman as a vigilante can't do it. So, what does he do? So when Bruce Wayne, Batman, decides to run Harvey Dent as the new district attorney, Harvey Dent decides he will do it. But he does it in a disquieting way. He says, this city needs a Caesar. Needs someone who's going to come in and clean it up regardless of the law. Now I ask you guys, most of you are Americans, what happened to our country after 9/11? What did we all feel when we saw those planes go into those towers? We got to get those guys. No matter what it takes, no matter what laws we've got to break, we got to get those guys. Now, I voted for President Obama twice, but President Obama sends missiles to kill babies in the Middle East every week. Why do we put up with that? If I could talk to him directly, what would he say to me? He'd say, Peter, I got to do this. Yeah, I know we're killing innocent people, but you want to be safe, don't you? You don't want to know what we have to do to keep you safe, but we got to break the law. Guys, this is why The Dark Knight is a brilliant story, because that's exactly what happens in this story. Harvey Dent decides the evil is so bad in the city that he's got to break the law to do it. So when he becomes powerful, as Batman's put him up, here's what the villain does. The villain is so powerful that he can walk into a group of gangsters meeting and using a pin kill one of their bodyguards and get away with it. And now the villain's even more powerful. During a ceremony, he has top public officials killed. And Harvey Dent gets so angry at that he pulls one of the people aside, one of the villain's cohorts, and tortures him to get information. And when Batman shows up and says, "You can't do it this way, Harvey. You've got to obey the law. You're part of the law," Harvey says, "But he's evil." And Batman says, "But he doesn't know anything. You're torturing him for no reason. He can't tell you what you want to know." So we already know, as we get to the end of the first act, that Harvey Dent is unbalanced. That even though he's working for good, his bravery has a dangerous side to it. And now here's where the villain really deranges Harvey Dent. He kidnaps Harvey Dent's fiancée, Rachel, and he arranges for Harvey Dent to hear her being tortured and killed with gasoline. Now, what would you do if your fiancée was raped or murdered or killed while you watched? How would you feel? Would you be able to say, "Let's let the law take care of that"? I don't think I could. So Chris Nolan's brilliance is to show that Harvey Dent is deranged by this horrible evil. And Harvey Dent himself is burned in the same accident, burned badly, but he now turns evil because he is so angry. He begins to kill innocent people. And as he kills innocent people, he becomes more and more out of control until he finally kidnaps the commissioner of police and the family and is going to shoot the child in front of the commissioner. Now here's where the theme of our movie is really important. Remember, I talk about theme a lot in University of Story. What's the theme of this movie? And what's the BMOC? The theme of this movie is this, and it's classic, and it's used in Platoon, it's used in many war movies, it's used over and over again. It's used in a story I'm working on right now that we've created. Be careful when you fight evil that you do not become evil yourself. That's the theme you would say to President Bush, to President Obama, to the American people today. Because as a Hollywood liberal, I would say we have become evil in some ways. We're creating evil. That's the theme of Syriana. That's the theme of many social problem dramas. And it's the theme here of this great action movie. Be careful when you fight evil that you do not become evil yourself. Batman is forced to rescue the commissioner's family from Harvey Dent. And as he does so, he must kill the person that he brought in to bring justice and law to the city. And in the final, great sophisticated ending of this dark hero, anti-hero story, Batman says to the commissioner, "The people can never know that Harvey Dent became deranged. I will become the sacrificial goat. They can blame me because the people are not strong enough to know the truth about how we fight evil." This is then exactly what President Obama would tell me. "Peter, you don't want to see those pictures of those dead babies. In fact, you can't. Go on Google and see if you can see them. You won't. Because we must be protected," our leaders say, "by the very tactics that we're used to keep us safe today." This is why a great action movie can also be a great philosophical movie. And Dark Knight epitomizes this third type of action hero, the anti-hero. It's a brilliant story. And it's a brilliant story because it takes all the great tools of action and puts it in service of a great philosophical idea, which Chris Nolan always, always does.